You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation.
Welcome to Chief Speaks.
All music performed and produced by you.
Enlightenment comes from allowing yourself to journey through the dark shadow of death, the primordial abyss of wisdom's waters. For it is the treasures and mysteries that lie waiting in the dark that transform us and propel us to a new enlightened state. One should never aspire to live in the light nor the dark, but should journey between the two in order to evolve the overall reality into a self-actualized creation. Knowledge is your light, as wisdom is your darkness. The bold interplay of the two in your life leads you to an enlightened understanding of yourself and the inner verse you've created. Male is your enlightenment, female is your transformation, child is your evolution. Woman, accept the light into your darkness, so it may enlighten you. Man, go bring your light boldly into the darkness, so that it may transform you. Enlightenment and transformation.
I love you so much because you just don't know what you've just done for me. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is like the best call I've had in ages on BTR.
So this show was meant for me to be able to hear today, and I'm so thankful.
That's his home.
Therefore, now a new pathway has now been cut in order to get to the Almighty, where there may not have been one. So the communication with them, if they have enough power and strength to talk to us, the communication will be very clear.
That's one of the reasons I don't get into the current events thing too much, because it starts to become a perpetual alarm clock that we just keep hitting snooze on. I speak to the ascended masters, quote unquote. I talk about spiritual stuff, but I also speak about some very practical, we can do today things.
Be as natural as you can be with your spiritual. You can't always go by your feelings, because your feelings are corrupted. Your feelings are just as corrupted as everything else, your chakras and everything else. You got to know what's beyond you, and that's why we have elders. We can't do everything. You can't get everything out of books or weekend certification. You can have the most powerful, ancient, oldest, most, as far as you know, truthful tradition in your hands. And if you still have a dirty spirit, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to learn anything. You're not actually going to grow. I try to teach in a way where I make myself obsolete. That's always been my goal, to make myself obsolete.
I really wanted to, kind of big you up. I think you're awesome.
There's a lot of elders out here right now that want to know what's going on. They're not getting on Twitter and stuff like that, but they want to be up on the new stuff. Sit down and have some conversations with them. It's not always about hearing their story. It's also about being news reporters for them and letting them know, like, yeah, this is what's happening right now. They may tell you something about what happened in Charleston that you couldn't even. Your spirituality has to create sane spiritual family. Okay, and that family exists first inside of you. You have to express the different expressions of that rainbow coalition of spirits inside of you first. Okay, don't let communities hijack that rainbow. The problem is, when we come into the conscious community, the dudes are doing the same thing that the women are doing.
I just want to say that I really enjoy your show every Sunday, and my friend and I call it going to church. When we call in, we'll be like, you going to church? And I'm like, where have y'all been at?
God cannot go against its own truth. So anytime you have an inkling that God is going against its own truth, then God is no longer behaving as God. So therefore, the spiritual community doesn't recognize God. You dig where I'm coming from? Or can we have a new thought? Can we step outside of the books for a second and have a new conversation about hair weaves and wigs? Can we have a new conversation about homosexuality? Can we have a new conversation about vegan eating? What are we doing? It's a good day for exorcism.
347-945-7680. Call in and let's build.
Mujiba Ijanas, Grandpa, Grandma, Book Boy Goon, Ori, Eshu, Boporisha, Ileanu, Hey, Ajay, Iyami Osaronga.
Greetings, one and all, and welcome to another Chief Speaks on Enlightenment and Transformation. this segment will be I think we're just going to I just want to speak to you guys in this particular segment. You know, this month we're dealing with the idea of, or ideas rather, of liberty and freedom. And last segment was a segment that kicked the month off, where we just dealt with some of the outlining ideas of liberty and freedom, and how one leads to the other. And you know, it's really more than a declaration, much more than a statement. And I guess the reason I would like to really just kind of relax a little bit with this segment, I was going to do the imprisonment of Obatala and do a decoding and breakdown a little bit with you guys, but I decided that I'm going to do that next strong. And this strong just there's been so much that's occurred between our last segment and this segment. I mean, there was a lot going on then that I felt the winds of change were calling for something else. You know, this is clearly a season of death. You know, I have about maybe 3 to 4 students who have lost parents just in the past 6 days. Yeah, so it's been about 6 days. Not to mention the killings that have gone on around the country, where there's been several men who have been murdered at the hands of policing agents. So we are in a season of death, man. There's a lot of things happening right now, and certainly, obviously, death means transformation. That's ushering in a lot of change. And sometimes when there's a lot of change and there's a lot of transformation, and individuals are unable to source the root of the change and transformation, the only response is a high degree of emotionalism and a high degree of resistance. So amidst all of the changing and all of the death and certainly all of the brutal killing, I felt it would be incumbent upon me to make sure that I'm not also throwing in a lot of information at this time that may just cause us to ruminate on things that we shouldn't really be reflecting on at this time. I mean, our times have to dictate our agenda, and our agenda really moves and shapes what the times will be. So it's like a symbiotic relationship between your agenda and the changing of the seasons. You know, one feeds into the other. The seasons and what's going on and what's relevant for the moment should help to define what your agenda is, and your agenda should be changing the natural environment of how the seasons are changing. Of course, this is a time of a lot of death, but it's not necessarily a new thing. And that's something that I kind of really wanted to touch on for a moment. But I felt I wanted to share a little new information before I got started. And, you know, I'm going to also comment on something. Someone sent me a message recently saying that in the past, what did he say? I think he just said the past few segments I've done, he's noticed that my energy has come down a bit. And you know, he was just checking on me to see if I was okay. And yeah, I'm as I've always been. You know, this work is really for the restless. This work is for those who are never satisfied. This work is for those who don't sleep very often. You know, so I don't really sleep. You know, I kind of nap when I fall out, but maybe I'll do 3 hours here, an hour, something like that. But I usually go on about 3 or 4 hours a day of sleep, so I'm always up. Not always up and vibrant, but always up. So sometimes during those non-vibrant times, you'll catch me recording a show in between doing something else, you know. So yeah, for anyone, because it's come up before, people say, "Are you okay, Chief? You look tired." Yeah, it's an exhausting work dealing with sometimes dealing with your own family. It could be the most draining thing that you could possibly imagine. Not just to mention the level of counseling and support that's necessary, like when you have students whose parents are transitioning, you know, and you have to be there, and you know, you have to talk them through it, or sometimes physically I'm walking them through it, and I'm at the hospital with them, or I'm at the funerals with them. I'm sometimes at the funeral homes. I'm the one making the plans for them because they're just too distraught and they can't really wrap their heads around things. But that's a part of being a Jegna. You know, you might be tired a lot. You know, you might be tired a lot. So yeah, I wanted to kind of speak on something for a moment. You know, I wanted to address that. Yeah, so that's why sometimes you catch me and I look like I'm a bit fatigued. There may be a lot going on. And I'm also not really a hype person in general anyway. You know, so sometimes people, just in my normal life, they'll think certain things about me, but it's just my energy is usually pretty even killed. You know, I don't smoke or anything like that, but sometimes people make that assumption because I tend to be pretty calm most of the time. So yeah, that's what you're noticing. Now, yeah, if I'm standing and I'm outside, and sometimes if I'm doing rituals before I do these segments, then I'll be a little amped up. So you can kind of notice it a little bit. So the times that you see me and I'm like, you know, maybe talking a little faster, a little amped, most likely I'm in the middle of a ritual and I'm taking a break to record the segment, and then I got to get back to it. Okay. But I wanted to speak to you a little bit about the beginnings of Anu in the form that it currently is. And I wanted to speak about that because let me turn my phone off. Just give me a second. Yeah, we're real laid back, you know. Yeah, I just wanted to speak about that because I really wanted to speak about the beginnings of Anu because I felt it was pertinent to the topic that we're going to discuss today, liberty and freedom. And in fact, the concept dealing with liberty and freedom that I really want to center on is liberty or death. And we know there was the famous speech in 1775 by Patrick Henry, where he said, it was really at the end of the speech, and he said, "Give me liberty or give me death." Well, I wanted to address some of that concept for a moment, but first I wanted to deal with some of the origins of Anu. Now, you know, in a recent segment, I shared how exactly, not exactly, but some of the regions that I pull primarily from, pull my information from, you know, or the starter doctrine and pedagogy of Anu, where it actually came from. And I share, you know, northern continent of Akibalan, the southern part, the eastern, the western, and the center. I picked 5 points. And many years ago, and based my study there because I felt that trying to choose one region was just not the smartest thing. I felt that one of the reasons that I was born in this time and delivered on this soil known as America was to really draw together and assimilate all of the various systems and cultures that exist over there that were divided because of lines, colonial lines, where the imperialists came in and drew these fictitious boundaries and things like that, but also some of the tribalism that existed before. So I felt that part of, you know, there's always a fortune within the misfortune. So yeah, the misfortune being separated from the mother the fortune now being able to embrace the whole continent and say, you know what, I'm just going to take all of it. I'll take all of it. You know, I don't have to localize myself to a particular region. And that's probably why I'm here looking from a distance now, because I'm really supposed to be pulling those places back together, pulling those nations back together into one mind, and, you know, and into a unified thought. And doing that, you find the commonalities. That's why some of you may have noticed my teaching style is there's a lot of cross-reference in the way I teach. You know, I'll say a name and I'll say, and that's also this, that, over here, over here, over here, over here. Well, that's just because of the original objective and aim that I began with was always to find the connecting points where we could all relate and we could stand on certain foundational principles together as one people. So when I first started, I knew, right? And prior to I knew, I had another organization that was just straight, well, primarily straight rites of passage, but we did other things as well. You know, I taught African dance and drum and fighting systems, computers, music, you know, even chess. You know, yeah, so I, you know, taught a lot of things, really trying, and it was mainly directed towards the young warriors, you know, the young boys and the young girls. And that organization, we did very well for a very long time. And when it was time to make some transitions, things had to happen pretty abruptly. One of the reasons is because I was attacked in the media because of what someone else did. Someone stood on stage with my musicians. I had a drum orchestra with that particular organization, and they said some statements in a public forum. They weren't a part of my organization, and that became a huge thing. And a lot of news stations, of course Fox, because you know they love things like that, got involved, and it created a lot of melee. But what it did was it caused me to reassess how I was presenting what I was presenting, because up until that time, and we're talking 2010, I was always in the shadows. I never wanted to do videos like I'm doing now. I had a radio show prior to that, and I really didn't even want to do the radio show. The way that particular show happened was it was me and another brother, and we filled in once for this elder, and the show that we filled in for, we did so well on. It was an FM show that they asked us to come back the next strong. Well, that next strong we did, that strong, that elder transitioned. So it's like we ushered them right out and ended up doing the show. And then the brother who I was doing it with, his reliability kind of faltered. And, you know, I gave my word, so I kept it going forward. So I ended up being a radio show host. And then, you know, fast forward, building my organization and putting things together, I really was always about being the silent power. You know, I was always big on being the unseen reality in the background, just kind of moving and making things happen, but never really interested in being in the light. But when that incident happened in 2010, I said, okay, I can't keep having other people represent what it is that I'm doing. I have to do it myself. I'm going to have to represent. I'm going to have to finally put a picture of myself on the internet, which still was never a real picture. I mean, if you look now, I still don't have any real pictures. They're all stills from different videos, just little screen captures. I have yet to sit down and actually take a picture for the internet or for press releases, anything like that. But you know, just something just as simple as that, and letting my voice be heard and things like that. You know, I was doing a lot of work, but it was off camera. So I was doing rites of passage and things like that. And my members knew me and my students knew me, but that was it. I wasn't necessarily advertising to the web. So we fast forward, and I'm going to skip over a lot of things. And I start this Anu Temple. And the original goal of the Anu Temple was to, again, create a conglomerate of different indigenous traditions. So I always looked at the different groups here in North America of those who are the black and the brown seed as almost like different nations, or what some of you may call tribes. So I would look at, like, I had friends who were Latin kings. To me, the Latin kings, to me, they were, and I still consider them to be their nation. And then I had Pyrus, you know, who I was cool with. I had Crips, you know, I had Gangster Disciples, Rastafarianisms, Rastafari. I had members of the Nation of Gods and Earth, members of the Nation of Islam, Hebrew Israelites, you know, so many different people that through my travels and through my work, I had become very cool with, we'll say, and we were able to have a lot of build sessions and share a lot of common experiences. So the original idea of Anu, what I started with, I had myself and I gathered there was 7 other people, but there were really more, but there was supposed to be 7 solid. And what I did was I created this council of what I considered to be indigenous traditions and cultures that were here in the States. So I had my Hebrew Israelites. I just had my people who were. I had some brothers who were coming out of a Sourcet society, so they were mainly dealing with just with the Kemetic piece. Of course, I had my Yoruba folks. I had my Akan folks. A good brother of mine dealing strictly with Santeria. His generations of Santeros and his family. I was working with him. Then I had another sister I was building with in Palo. So we had like a nice conglomerate. And that was originally Anu. That was the Anu Nation that I first designed. And I had dossiers like this thick that I had written up the whole theory of it, the reason why. I had a 30-year plan, I had a 40-year plan, and I had a 60-year plan. And of course I had my 3-year, 5-year, 7-year plans, and wrote it up in a dossier. The economic aspect, I also included a courting manual inside of it, so that way as we started to work together, if people started to like one another, they would know how to proceed, so that way we'll be respectful and we could actually start forming some real families. Within that, I also created the Sadulu House, which was originally a children's school. Okay, so that's how Sadulu House started. It was actually a children's school, and not just a children's school for spirituality. I had a school, and what happened was, when the real work started to come into play, you know, I had the farmland, and I had to we had to expand a little bit more, and you know, and I'm not even talking about financially, because you know, I come from, genetically, I come from a family of hustlers. So fundraising was never my thing. It still is. I still don't really know how to do it properly, aside from just putting a link up and saying, if you want to contribute here, go ahead. But I know there's a science to fundraising, but I was always, I'll go get it. You know, whatever we need, I know how to turn a dollar. I can work little things, get little contracts here and there, and maybe do a presentation here and then take the money from that and flip it over there. One of my other things I used to do, and I speak about these things now, I would get these contracts teaching different things like martial arts or music in prestigious locations. And sometimes, you know, you could play around with the budget a little bit. So I would say, okay, well, we need this too. We need extra mats. We need extra kick guards. We need extra heavy bags. And then I'd take that equipment, put it in my truck, and take it to the hood. And I would be able to do things for free like that, you know, play around a little bit with the numbers. Not so bad that, you know, there would be a problem, but just enough so that I could offer free or very low cost services to people who couldn't, you know, afford. So I always knew how to finagle things. So what was really needed was some sweat equity, you know, some time, some physical things, even at times, you know, come help me farm this land, you know, come help me put these fences up. You know, I was raising dogs at one point, you know, help, you know, so it was a lot of little things that were needed, just some things as simple as helping me mix the cement. You know, we're going back now. And I was giving away free land, by the way. I had about 100 acres of land, and I was giving it away for anyone who wanted to live on it and build and farm with me. And I was also teaching straw bale at the time, straw bale building. And no one showed up. So I had this huge organization. I had a lot of people who I was, we'll say rolling with. We'll use that terminology. Rolling with in New York, from New York to Virginia to Miami. You know, I had a lot of stuff going on. And couldn't get anyone to show up to do the work. Not even try. It wasn't like they were trying and then we had disagreements. Couldn't even get them to show up. Now they would show up for the events. You know, we doing a Kwanzaa event. It's gonna be drumming. It's gonna be the sisters gonna be there dancing, and you know, everyone's there. But you know, when we were doing even things like the rites of passage, okay, I need 7 men, I need 7 women. Nothing. The ones that would come through, the ones you would never expect. You know, the newbies, the brothers and sisters who didn't really know anything but just had a heart to be a part and help. And those are brothers and sisters I'm still connected to this day. You know, because heart means more to me than what you know. I can teach you stuff. That's not very hard. I can put you on a crash course and get you deep. But heart, I can't give you heart. You got to come with the heart. So for those who came with that, I was always very grateful. So what happened was when I created the Anu Temple, I had 2 locations, 2 physical locations. All of these priests and these elders and these different traditions that I started with completely fell off the map. So there was 1 man left standing, and you can imagine who that person was. So I knew it was completely on my shoulders. And whereas there was, my original design was there was a council of Jegnas and a coordinator. And I was elected to be the coordinator, which you would quote unquote chief. But we were also supposed to have a council of elders as well, male and female. Because originally there was a lot of men coming through and I wasn't comfortable with that. And I said, nah, this is, you know, I'm heterosexual. So this doesn't feel heterosexual, you know. And sometimes, you know, when you're dealing with men who've kind of been beat up and battered by life a bit, it becomes a female bashing session. And I, you know, sometimes I saw it was starting to go that direction. I said, no. We're going to suspend everything till we get some elder women in the space. And we went in, and well, I went and I did that. But eventually, 98% of the folks who were supposed to be participating fell off. So I said, okay, I can either shut everything down or just put it on my shoulders and just keep it moving. And I did that. So why do I tell that story? And as you guys probably know, I don't share much about Anu. Well, at least the history. And the history goes way back. I mean, it's gone through so many different transitions and changes. I mean, like I said, there were my brothers who remember B to the Third. That was one of my first programs, Brothers Building Brothers. You know, I was running that 90s, early 90s. out of my barbershop. You know, there was so many different things that we had going on at that time. New Era Soldiers, you know, a lot of different things. And some of you guys may remember, those of you who've been around for a while, know that, you know, we've been putting in this work for a very long time. Sons of Sankofa, you know, which I can't really say I ever let that die, but I had to. There was only one son left. You know, you can guess who that is. So, give me liberty or give me death. Why do I bring this up? Well, you know, what I spoke about in the last segment was this. Freedom is, the idea, the concept, or the term freedom is synonymous with free judgment, free dominion. Your dominion is what you judge. And you judge using really your reasoning faculties. So we all have different faculties that exist within us. And those faculties are called our nature, right? And the interesting thing about when we start getting into our nature, or we talk about the netir, or you know, or a netir, or the netiru, or the orisha, and we acknowledge them as being natural forces of the planet, natural forces of the cosmos, natural forces of this particular realm. One of the things that as we get deeper into them, we realize that these are the natural forces and faculties that exist within us. So your nature is actually your natural faculties. That's your nature. So like when someone says it's in your nature to do this or to go against your nature, that's saying you're doing something that you basically can't do. You can't do it. It's not going to work. It's not a part of your natural faculties. So the phenomena about judgment and reason is that it's an independent phenomenon. It's not an objective thing. It's very subjective. So when we speak about freedom or we speak about liberty, one of the important things to recognize, one of the important things to realize is that it's an internal process. So I shared the story about some of the foundations and the beginnings of what became and what is still shaping up to be a prolific experience known as Anu Life Global Ministries and Anu Nation, you know, and Sadulu House and all these things that had very humble beginnings. I share that to share that a lot of times when we come into a deeper level of spirituality, we recognize that there is to some degree an identifying with and even an emulating of a higher deified archetype or a god. And one of the common phenomenons that you'll find with all deities of any pantheon is that there's always a moment where you'll read or you'll hear about in their literature where that particular deity created itself and sustained itself. Self-created, self-revealed, self-manifested, and self-sustained. Needs nothing, needs no one, right? So if we are the personification of those same deities, but in a human form, it would stand to reason that we also have the same altruistic capacities and faculties within us and the pervasive capacity to be self-reliant. Well, when we speak about liberty or death, and again in Patrick Henry's speech, he said, "Give me liberty or give me death." One of the challenges with that and the problems is who are you speaking to? If we understand that freedom is free judgment and our judgment is synonymous with our reasoning and it's an independent thing, it's internal. You reason internally. One of the things that separates you from the beasts of the field is your capacity for reason. And your capacity, reason is not an instinct. Everything else that you have to survive is instinct. Right now, if a car crashes through a wall right now, you're going to see me do this at least, or you're going to see me blink or something, because instinctually I don't want to die. So I'm going to do things, maybe just a blink or whatever, because that's an instinctive response. I may not immediately and instinctually reason as to why the car came into the house, or reason as to what my best course of action to be. That's why when you see a lot of people, when they perform heroic acts, or even if they're heroic acts to save their own lives, and people say, well, how did you know to do this and do that? I don't know. I didn't think. I just reacted, right? Because that's your primal instincts. So your freedom doesn't come by a spontaneous primal reaction to anything. Your liberty doesn't come through that. Your liberty and your freedom comes through your ability to reason. So one of the beautiful things about Rasta culture, a lot of times we'll say, we're reasoning. Let's reason, and that reasoning is like a building of the blocks of truth within one another, and the truth shall make you free. So me going through those situations early in a lot of different areas of my life. I mean, even the barbershop, sometimes you guys hear me talk about, that was originally supposed to be with another brother as well. We were supposed to partner and do the shop together. He was a little older than me, and he kept moving so slow on it. And I was like, yo, we gotta, what's up? And then finally I was like, listen, I gotta do this, because I had paid my way through college, my cutting hair. So I said, man, I gotta go do this, and to this day he doesn't speak to me. And we talking a long time ago, and he was very upset about me doing that. And I had spoken to an elder about it at the time. I said, look, man, he's dragging his heels, and I gotta get this money. And he was like, he said, F him. He was smoking cigarette. He owned a salon down the street. I was like, what do you think I should do? He said, F him. Do what you gotta do. Okay. And that's what I did. And I lost a friend, but sometimes that's what has to happen, because emulating that deity, you learn that your journey is really, it's an individualistic one. And that's one of the values of ego. Any deity that says I'm self-reliant, I made myself, I sustain myself, I need nothing but myself, that's a pretty egotistical God. I mean, imagine if your child said that to you, like, you little egotistical bastard, so to have a deity that expresses itself in such a manner and then says that you're a reflection of me, we see that there is a healthy value and a healthy place for that same ego. So even in moments when starting things like even music, a lot of you guys know I play a lot of different instruments. Well, you know how that really came about? Obviously the talent was always in me. I'm a very quick learner. So if you put anything in front of me, I could just pick it up within usually a couple hours. And but what happened when I was playing with a lot of groups back in the days, I started playing a lot of Latin music. I used to play in a lot of Latin clubs when I was a minor, actually. I mean, I wasn't even 14. And going from playing Latin music, then I was playing heavy metal, believe it or not, if you could picture that. And not just heavy metal like Metallica or Iron Maiden or Black Sabbath, but like Slayer, Overkill, Megadeth, Anthrax. You may not even know any of these groups, but that was another life ago. And I was playing in different groups and then coming up, and then was doing more like R&B top 40 stuff or whatever. Playing with, just long story short, a lot of musicians who were unreliable. We'd show up at the rehearsal hall, nobody would show up, the drummer didn't show up, oh yo, my girl needed me for something, or the keyboard player wasn't there, whatever. And eventually I got frustrated, because this is something I had a lot of talent for, and I was told that by the time I hit a certain age, I would be a multi-millionaire. Everyone who heard me play used to always say that, man, that kid's gonna be rich, because of the level I played at. And I'm looking at it like, man, these guys are blocking my millions, so I just learned how to play everything myself, and started learning how to play the piano, started learning how to play the trap drum sets, and learning how to play the sax and just different instruments, so I could create my own compositions and orchestration without relying on anyone else. This is, of course, prior to really the influx of samplers and drum machines, where they were affordable, where you could actually get one. They existed, but they were just out of everybody's range back then. But it was the same thing. Do I want to allow myself to be imprisoned and encaged because of someone else's inability to see what it is that I'm envisioning? Or can I liberate myself to be free of that reality? So just like building anew, or trying to open up a barbershop, or wanting to be the next big group, and that not being able to happen, saying I got to do it myself, that liberty or death, or that liberty or change, or that liberty or transformation was not something that I requisitioned from any higher power. It was not something that I requisitioned from a government that I felt was suppressing and oppressing me. I didn't ask anyone. I made the decision internally through my own reasoning faculties and said, I can free myself from this situation by thinking about what would work best. Now, my primal instincts would most likely have me do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, because my animal nature always seeks to recreate the same context that I've always had. The animal nature always says, keep things exactly how they are. And it has trouble really realizing when the context has changed. It seeks to recreate its same context wherever it goes. But my divine and higher reasoning nature says, right now you're in a trap, and you can think yourself, or you can pull from other natural faculties inside of you to get out of this trap, or you can limit your perception of your own nature and say, well, this is all I can do. This is all that is. When we think about liberty and freedom, there's been some very interesting experiments that were done, especially in the early 1900s. And there were some experiments done over in Europe where there was a determination made that accepting the ideas and accepting the concept of being liberated, or being free, was not really an issue amongst the people. The issue was applying freedom, really truly owning freedom. Because if you really truly own freedom, then you'd have to become self-reliant. You'd have to become like that deity that you speak about all the time. If you really want to have free reasoning, free judgment capabilities, then you would say then at that moment that I have to become completely self-reliant, almost completely self-created, almost completely self-sustained. And that was one of the biggest problems. They found that people actually, once they were put in positions where they had to really become self-reliant, they didn't want the freedom anymore. They didn't even want it. They said, no, we'd rather have it the way it is. And so some people, when we look at some of the events that have been going on, the killings, which have been going on for so long, I mean, the injustices have been going on for so long, but when we look at some of those different situations, certainly we could sit back and we could whine and complain. We have a lot of opportunity and a lot of space to do that. We can. And our primal instincts will either kick into a mode of fear, or will kick into a mode of immediate retaliation, all of which is comprised of an emotional substance. So all of it is just after effect of a thought. You remember, your emotions are just the waste products of your thoughts. But when we really reason, when we go beyond that, is when we can say, well, how can we become free of this situation? Let's really think beyond our emotional immediate reaction. And let's really reason and really make a determination if we really want the price of that freedom, which would be self-reliance. If we say, hey, we want to go live on some land and free up. Okay, cool. You ready to police yourselves? You ready if someone gets bitten by a snake or whatever, or breaks a bone, you ready to set that bone? Or somebody's in the wood cutting some wood and they cut their finger off. Can you handle that? And I'm not trying to scare you from that. But what I'm saying is that sometimes we get frustrated when we look at other people and we say, you know, this has been going on for a long time and that's been going on for a long time and no one's going to do anything about it. Well, because subconsciously we know to actually finally do something about it would mean that we'd actually have to really take on the burden of freedom. You know, it's easy to act emotional because we live in a society where things are promised to us that we know subconsciously can't be delivered as fast as they say. You know, we have get skinny pills, diet pills, you know, get rich quick schemes, you know, pickup artists, you know, sleep with all the women you want tonight. You know, we have all those different things. But within us, you know, a proper functioning mind, not a dysfunctional one, but a proper functioning mind knows that anything worth having has to be worked for. So even wealth, to achieve and sustain true wealth, one has to put in a certain measure of effort in order to have that wealth, right? There's no get rich quick schemes. But if you look amongst many of the communities of knowers or the networks of knowers, you have all of these schemes that are brought up. Just sign this paperwork, fill this out, fill that out, and you'll be free. You'll have your status. Or you can write checks off of your social security number because you know you got your straw man. You can claim your straw man because somebody's making money off of your straw man, because when your parents got your birth certificate, they signed you over and they put you on they put you on a stock exchange, and you can go reclaim that money. And you could just move into a house that's, you know, been foreclosed upon, and you can just do a reverse acquisition and you file paperwork and you could take the house. You know, all of these little get rich quick schemes. Freedom doesn't come that way, though. Freedom has to be earned, and then freedom is maintained through self-reliance. So when one says something like, give me liberty or give me death, it's actually a debilitating statement. Give. No one gives freedom, and no one gives death. Freedom is earned. Liberty is earned. Liberty is worked towards. And then once you work towards liberty, you work towards sustaining and maintaining freedom. So freedom is the active thing that you move towards through liberation. But no one can give it to you. No one. You see? So even when I was starting, I knew, giving you the example earlier, and I tried to start these groups and I was doing all of these things because I wanted these people who I surrounded myself with to give me my vision. You see, I had this vision of you know, because I'm seeing people in a Khan tradition, my brothers and sisters in Lukumi, my brothers and sisters in Santeria, my brothers and sisters just dealing with metaphysics, some were dealing with Kabbalah, and I'm saying, man, you know, we need to come together. And I was able to do that. I could talk and get everyone into a room together, and everyone, yeah, and pumping their fist up in the air. And that felt good, because it felt like they were giving me back what it is that I wanted to see, which was that level of unity. But it wasn't real. So now that I've worked to build this movement and to build this philosophy of Anu, which is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's not just me talking. That's now earned me the respect of certain people in different traditions who say, you know what, Chief, I want to get with you. I want to study with you. You know, I want to contribute to your ministry and maybe hold down a post or start a chapter where I live. So I had to go out and make and earn those individuals that I wanted the universe to just hand to me. Sometimes we think that the universe is this giant clock or this giant mechanism of pleasure, you know, and it's just waiting to give us pleasure. It's just waiting to give us bliss. It's not. We have to earn it. And sometimes we have to make what it is that we want. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. You see? So I'm making my freedom. I'm making my liberation by applying truth, by accepting and knowing what the truth is. So even when we look at the killings and things like that, I know, of course, we're going to have an emotional reaction. That's the humanity in us. And as far as going out and cracking heads, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. I mean, I'm not one to sit here and say violence is not the answer, because I don't believe that. I do believe sometimes violence is. I do know that sometimes violence is the answer. I consider myself to be a violent person, you know, and I have no shame about that. I'm not a advocate of senseless violence, no. But there is a time when violence does make sense. But there also has to be a time for reasoning when we go beyond what we perceive to be our immediate and accessible and natural faculties and go into that step higher. When we become that Nebharu, go step higher into our reasoning faculties and say, I can reason my way out of this nonsense. I can reason my way into some freedom. And if that reasoning may mean I got to leave the continent, that reasoning may mean I got to hammer up, you know, and reason, whatever that stratagem looks like, it's not going to come as a result of your emotional outpouring. It's not. Freedom is not going to come as a result of you being able to stir people up emotionally. It's just not. One of the reasons I don't do the current events things too often. I can get you hyped. You know, I know how to do it. You know, I know how to speak, you know, I know most of the time I'm calm, but I also know how to use certain inflection and project my voice. And, you know, my favorite speaker of all times, Jesse Jackson. Brilliant speaker. I know, Jesse Jackson. I said speaker. I'm not talking about his content. I'm not talking about his character. But that man knows how to work a room. Second to him, Martin Luther King. But Jesse Jackson is a brilliant mind, knows how to work a room. And when I was younger, because I've been speaking for a long time, since my teenage years, speaking publicly, I used to just study Jesse Jackson. That was my model. You know, the way he would hold his hand, when he would look down, and when he would breathe, and when he would do everything. Because I knew everything meant something, you know. And then when you start to learn the metaphysics of the body movements, which I started learning when I studied Kama Sutra. And when I studied Kama Sutra, I understood, like, maybe he had these gifts naturally, but I knew how he was able to affect people at a level of their nervous system, just through his various inflection, you know. So I could do it. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not worth much to get you riled up for the moment, to get you fist pumping. No, you're gonna have to earn your freedom. That's a cop-out. You just want me to get all hyped up and everything and talk about all the things that you should be doing that you're too afraid to do because you don't want to have to support it. That's why sometimes when we do call-in shows and things like that, no, people don't really necessarily call in as much. Because it's the nature and the quality of what it is that we present at Anu, you know, which really, it calls for action. And people don't want to have those conversations. They just want to drift and float amongst the meanderings of nothingness. You know, that feels good, to float and hover right above the earth without ever really touching it. You know, and if that's what you want your life to be, you're free to do that. You know, but I knew we're doing something a little different. But I'm never surprised when there's a lack of interaction or there's a lack of participation, because I know how I got started. And I know that everyone who interacts, everyone who participates, I gotta earn each one. You know, it's like that parable. It speaks about the shepherd who has 100 sheep but loses one, and celebrates when that one is found. You know, so because you know how hard you had to earn each one of those. You know, it's like having, you know, just possessing. You know, it could be children. Sometimes we end up ignoring the ones who stay put for the one that's the prodigal one, the one that just goes away and goes off and doesn't do what it's supposed to do. But you know, if you got $10,000 in your pocket right now and you lose $5 in your car, I bet you be putting those seats up and down, putting them back, digging in underneath the seat, trying to find that $5, knowing that you got 10 grand. Where's that $5? All hell gonna break loose if I don't get my $5. You know, so it's the same thing. You know, certain things are very hard earned. And in this day and time, our freedom is going to be hard earned. It's not going to come through these little marches. I mean, if you want to march, go ahead and march. But you know, when we talk about your natural faculties and some of the suggestions that are implanted to make you think that they're natural, whoever told you that marching was the thing to do? Where'd you get that from? Just think about that for a second. Like whoever, like, you know, somebody's holding up a picket sign. Whoever told you to do that? Where'd you get that from? You know, especially considering that if we speak about melanin dominant people, our condition is very unique. So you may say, oh, well, when the unions, you know, when they want to strike, they hold up picket signs and they march. That's a unique situation, though. Our situation is unlike anything on the planet. So maybe marching and picket signs and sexy pictures on Instagram with us like this, you know, maybe that's not really gonna work. I mean, I know when something tragic happens, we love taking pictures. Somehow we think that's effective. You know, you'll get all these celebrities who will take pictures holding signs and stuff like that. But you notice they always still strive to look fly in the picture. You know, they're still making their money despite. You know, they're still gonna make sure they look fly. But you know, just think about how that may be perceived by those who are victimizing you. They victimize you, and all you do is walk around and take pictures, take selfies. I don't know. It just seems a little soft. You know, it just seems a little soft. But we all come from different nations. And depending on your nation, that may be acceptable for you. For me, my nation, that's not acceptable. Even when I was younger and really into cracking heads, marches I never was really into the march. I've done marches before, but just because like times like now, things happen, we feel like we're supposed to do certain things because we lose our God self. We lose our sense of self-reliance. So if everyone's upset about Alton Sterling, we feel like we should be upset about Alton Sterling. If everyone says we should march, we feel like we should march. Because we lose our sense of self-determination and self-reliance. Like, I don't feel like I should march. I feel like I should do the exact same things I've been doing. And just keep doing. I don't have to do more of them. I don't have to respond to the police. I don't have to do any of that. I've known about that stuff. And I've already shaped my life and my work and my ministry around those things that have already happened. I've already responded to that in the work that I do. I've responded to that in my mindset. I've already responded to it. So I don't need to now, you know, make another response, you know. But again, each nation is different, or each tribe, as some of you say. Here at Anu, we have already taken care of those things, and we're working towards active solutions. And there already are some active solutions. Like I said on community show this Thursday, I think I called in. We were talking about solutions, talking about the killings, and I said, If you're 35 and over, you're not going to do anything with your life at this point anyway. You're not really that important. I have plenty of land off the U.S. continent. For years, I've been amassing land. And I finally revealed that to the public. There's a lot of things I do overseas that I've been hush-hush. And I said, send your children there. We get about 3 or 4 families of elders. And if we just send maybe 10 children, you need about like 2 families. 2 couples, basically. 2 elders. Let them go live there, because your Social Security doesn't mean much here on American soil. You can go over there and collect that little Social Security money and your pension and live like royalty. You wash these babies, make sure they're in school and they're fed and their uniforms are right and everything like that. And you parents who are 35 and up, you stay here in America, you catch all the hell in Scunyon. And this way now you don't even have to worry about your children anymore. Because that's the ace card that this system keeps playing you with. Because that's the main thing you're afraid. You're afraid to really do any real revolutionary action, because the first thing you're going to think about is your family. Well, if I'm in jail, who's going to, But if your children are out of the hot oven and they're away, then now you can do whatever you need to do. Kind of like, those nights when you get your relatives to babysit for you, and you and your mate can just go crazy in the house. It's the same thing. Now you can be freed up to do some other things. And that was just a simple solution I gave. And you could just send your coins you keep working your little 9 to 5s, because most of you don't want the burden of having your own business, but send your money over there to take care of your children. It's very cheap, doesn't cost much. I have land in Nigeria, I have land in Ghana, I have land in Tanzania, I have land in other places as well. I'm only mentioning 3. A lot of things I won't say on air. But I shared that this Thursday on the community radio show, and I said that's the most that I've shared about my work overseas in over 15 years. Because I don't say anything about what I do. And there's a lot more. I have a whole nother team over there. Whole nother team. My team over there actually, I think, is bigger than my team over here. So there are solutions that are in front of us, and they just require us to tap into our higher level reasoning function, which now causes us to start thinking like deities. But as long as we're tied into the responses of everyone else, and we're tied into the actions of everyone else, we'll never really truly live out and manifest that deity mindset, that Orisha mindset, or that higher archetype mindset, because we're too reliant on others. So just like, again, going back, that's why I shared the story of how I started anew. It was really supposed to be out my usual position. I wanted to be in the background, and I wanted all these other people who represented these different traditions to, let the world see, no, we can come together under one banner and still do what we do. I wasn't able to get that off. It wasn't able to happen, but I was never relying on any of them. I'm going to do what I'm going to do because this is the purpose. This is my purpose to do this. So I'm going to get it done. And that's me thinking like a deity and acting like a deity, being self-reliant, being self-created. You look at my books, there's no bibliographies. I'm not stealing these ideas from anyone. These are things that I've lived through and things that I've studied, but these are primarily, when you guys hear me speak, 99% of what I'm saying is just has come through me looking out the window on a rainy day. And and of course there's been a lot of input from different sources. So I'm not saying, it's all completely, totally self-generated, but it's certainly all self-synthesized from so many different sources. I was listening to DMX recently, and got something from him, and I was like, oh, I should do a show on that. He said one little line in a song, and I was like, that'll make a good show topic. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. Like I said, this would be kind of a easy breezy Chief Speaks, but the idea of freedom and liberty, freedom being something that is earned and has to be sustained, and really true freedom and true free and altruistic judgment, altruistic reasoning is a product of functional and healthy high-level ego. And your concept of a deity and what the scriptures reveal about these deities reveal highest level of ego. I am that I am. And I can become all things, you see. So that's been our Chief Speaks. I want to thank you all for tuning in once again. And for all of you who came in from the archives and from wherever else, from YouTube, thank you. Please, if you are enjoying what you're hearing, share it. If you're not a member, you can go to anulifeglobal.org. As the videos are going, you see the prompts on the bottom. So you just look at them. The links and everything are right there. To join classes, SaduluHouse.com. The link should be there. And for all that type of stuff, you know, if you want to join a class or take a class, one of our intermittent classes that we do, I know Candle Magic is coming out today. You know, you could definitely take that. And our new spiritual training, you could become a member there as well. So there's so many different things that we're working on, different angles that we're hitting. If you want to contribute to any of our initiatives, you can go to anunation.org or even Sadulu House, and it has the you know, support us page if you want to be a part of any of those initiatives like that. And yeah, it's a lot going on with Anu, and hopefully there's a lot going on with you. And just understand that it doesn't require mass movement, and your highest purpose and ideas will always be something that you're going to manifest by yourself. You can only go through that door by yourself. And yeah, it's lonely. It's a very lonely walk, but the level of fulfillment and the insight that comes to you and the pats on the backs that you get from your ancestors can't be compared to anything else. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. With that said, you all enjoy your day today. Please be safe. And as far as the shootings and killings and things that are going on, reason your way through it. It's been happening. This is nothing new. It's been going on. Stop being so reactionary. Be proactive. Okay? Preventive activism is what it's about right now. So that way, when something happens, you're not panicking. You know, it's just like if you're overweight. I think I used this example before, and somebody says, "Oh, you so fat." You go to the beach or something, but you know you just lost 10 pounds and you've been working out. You're gonna say, but come check me another couple months, you know, because you know you're actively working a solution. So that's what we have to be doing all the time. And it's not just about your proclamations. It's not just about you. I'm trying to get people together, because your purpose and your design is never, or your freedom is never going to be dependent on another person. When people say, "What's your life purpose?" My life purpose is to go help people and up. No, it's not. It never is. It's always going to be something that's for the individual. You know, you're going to have your cognitive freedom. Your cognitive freedom is the one that you're going to reason internally. Your reasoning capability is internal. Your perception of your deity is internal. Your perception of freedom is internal. So if all of these things are happening internally, then how can something external to you enslave you? That doesn't make sense. Something says, I'm taking your liberty, I'm enslaving you, and then you accept that and you just repeat it. You're taking my liberty, you're enslaving me. No, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Okay, so we'll get into this a little deeper. And we'll see what happens between now and next Sunday. But we should be getting into the imprisonment of Obatala and decoding that story a bit more. And I'll be sharing some information on that and how that applies to our walk metaphysically, socially, culturally, and esoterically. Until such time, I am
Anu Nation is home to the Anu spiritual order founded by Chief Jegna Haru Yuya Asan Anu. Some of the components of Anu Nation are a new life global ministry.
So self-actualization is actualizing mission and ideal of the soul. In order for new life to come, the old life has to rise. We realize the self is actually that higher entity.
Spiritual empowerment through education and training is emphasized. One way that is accomplished is through our monthly webinars. Our webinars are packed with foundational information rituals, and live instruction to empower your spiritual work. At SaduluHouse.com, you can view our diverse list of topics for this year that range from meditation to sex magic. And you can also register for any of the webinars at your convenience. Sign up for our introductory Orisha class, schedule a spiritual reading, and sign up for the new spiritual training course. Enlightenment and Transformation is the media component of our new nation. Here, you can view all of our archived shows from over the years to our current segments. They include Chief Speaks, Masterminds Monday, A New Asafo, Thunderground Thursdays, and Foundational Fridays. You can also visit us on our YouTube channels. They are Enlightenment and Transformation, Orisha Yoruba, and Anu Nation. Osiris Life Spiritual Services is for those who are ready to take the necessary actions to bring your life into holistic balance. Here we offer consistent monthly one-on-one coaching, solutions that are tailored just for you, practical hands-on self-development techniques that will accompany your monthly readings, and customized practical strategies designed for you that guarantee positive results. Simply choose the package that best fits your needs. And last but not least, AlphaOmegaStore.com. The Alpha Omega Store is our online botanica where we offer divination tools, herbs and incense, DVDs, books, and other hard-to-find ritual items. You can also get our best-selling foundational book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. Other great works from Anu Nation are Shrine and Altar, Solutions for Dysfunctional Family Relationships, and Natural Hair for Young Women. All great books to assist you on your journey. To find out more on how to get involved with Anu Nation, visit our websites and YouTube channels and be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter.